Hey Megan,
Hey Jeff, how are you?
doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
Hey Amanda,
Hello there.
how was everyone's weekend?
I took off last week, so I had a great week.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Where'd you head out to?
Nowhere. We had WebEx 1 at the end of October, and I decided I just needed some time to decompress.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Was it a live event or
it was. Yeah. Yeah.
those are
First,
always exhausting.
it went off great though.
What's the main goal for the web event? Is it usually to meet folks in the middle of the sales cycle or?
It was a pipeline thought leadership. It was all about AI and how the platform's enhanced with it and all of our announcements. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I get hit up with so many like, what do you think AI is going to do for revenue operations questions? Um, yeah, it's really powerful, but I think to really capture the full value of it, you have to get into the APIs and start playing around with some of the tooling. Um, I built some like middleware at our company, just connecting into the API. It's actually fairly cheap to like run a couple thousand queries into Open API.
I think there's a lot of opportunity to do it. You have to be doing right things before you do things in the right way. So getting clear what the process is before you try to automate it is a major concern, especially in a tactical revenue operations role. We of course leaned a lot on Cisco's general AI philosophy and how we're doing that responsibly and how security is enhanced by it. And so a lot of tie-ins, but taking it from that theoretical to how it actually makes my day-to-day easier
Yep.
is something that's difficult, but we had some really exciting stuff about meeting summaries and catch me up when you miss even just part of a meeting, and this is a lot there.
Yeah, maybe during one of our office hours, I'll just use it to walk through an AI example that I've been doing at work, so people can
That
see it.
sounds cool.
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of account scoring with ChatGPT. All right. Okay. Show of hands. Who manages their tech stack at their workplace? Megan, Scott, so Ryan, Pasha. Pasha, I'm guessing you do. Okay. All right. So this lecture is probably going to be more for the folks who are working at like small or mid-sized companies, managing the technology stack. If you're at a large company, like Amanda is, you're likely not touching the tech stack at all. Pasha, so you are managing and triaging. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, usually the consultants who take my class spend most of their energy around the RevOps tech stack. Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, give me 1 second. You probably hear some background noise. Let me close the door. Okay. All right. So just a little bit of history into managing the technology stack. Um, when I worked at Google or AWS, I never touched the tech stack, right? Only really used the data in those tech stack, in those tools like CRM. Most of them were outputted to like a third-party BI tool, which I can then download the data and then work offline. Other times I worked within different BI tools that I can just screenshot and take the data at face value. But at the smaller firms where I moved to like a startup, Series A, Series B, Series C, tech stack's not as mature. And so you'll notice that the distance of your ability to influence and even change the tech stack becomes really, really short. And so when you get to a bigger company, you're probably a couple of steps removed from the technology stack, and you're using it as an output as opposed to shaping the direction of the technology stack. So if any of you were ever to move to a smaller company, I think this would be a little bit more, hopefully some wisdom in managing a technology stack. So over the last couple of years, I think we've seen an explosion in SaaS provided tools, particularly marketing, sales, and customer success. It seems like there's a point solution for literally everything, and that's totally okay. If you need best in class, best in breed, then it's likely that you'll probably opt for a point solution. If you're managing a more limited budget and you need a broader range of capabilities, you're probably moving to an umbrella-based solution. You'll probably see, in my opinion, more consolidation in the sales and marketing technology space, especially as these point solutions that are in their series A, B, and C are over their skis in their valuation and probably are more likely attractive targets. You just saw Clearbit get acquired by HubSpot. You'll probably see a lot more of that in the next 1 or 2 years, just because these companies, at the end of the day, are probably bleeding cash and probably going to shut down anyway. So you'll see them in the form of acqui-hires, taking the team, or you'll either roll in the feature set. Clearbit was actually a strategic acquisition, and I don't see it as an acqui-hire. And then fun story, I actually know the founders of Clearbit. We used to hang out all the time. So I was texting them afterwards, and I was like, you guys got paid, and they're super happy. So if you're in the Clearbit ecosystem, I think it's going to be a pretty good boost to the functionality, probably in 2 or 3 years once they fully incorporate the feature stack. All right, so when I think about looking at our technology stack, I try to view it from the perspective of a product manager. And so our technology stack is a product at the end of the day that's used by a couple of different audiences. And so one thing that I like to focus on is developing a set of user stories. So I'm going to walk through a simple instrument that you can use as you're thinking about transforming your technology stack to work with your end stakeholders. And so it starts off with user stories. And the way I like to do it is and I fill out a blank sentence. The second sentence then starts with I want to, and then start with another blank. And so I can blank. All right. So let's go for a couple of examples. And so this is one of the tricks of, when you're building a revenue tech stack and your org is constantly changing, meaning new roles, new responsibilities, that's going to quickly dictate that there are going to be changes into your ecosystem. So for example, if you're a sales rep only organization and you're introducing an SDR team, well, guess what? You've just now added a new layer of complexity to your technology stack. And so you might say something like, as an SDR, I want to have a prospecting list automatically curated daily so they can reduce the workload to scrub their book of business and reallocate the time to calling. So the whole purpose there is to shift the amount of time that they're spending on tasks that are taking them away from the phones and shifting them back to the phones, right? That's kind of like the whole point of the SDRs. Second is the AE. The AE wants to be able to quickly assess their book of business or their pipeline quickly and accurately. And you want to be able to contribute to a concise and accurate forecast call. We can go so on and so on through all of the different profiles or within your Salesforce or your HubSpot instance and start to think through, what do they need to see? What do they need to perform? How do they interact with your systems? Because your systems are probably more than one tool. So they might be in, say, Outreach and then Salesforce, then they might be in ZoomInfo. So how do you make sure that they seamlessly go through each of the different tools to achieve their task with fewer clicks and the shortest amount of time possible? So one way of doing that is to think about all the different user stories by user. So you might have maybe 5 or 6 stories that an SDR would give you. So the first one is they want to have their prospecting list curated daily. That could be one user story. They could have a second user story and a third user story. You want to be as exhaustive as possible. Then you can start to develop these hypotheses. These hypotheses below start to think through, what are the big rocks in your systems that could be transformational to move you from where you are today to where you want to be. So let's just go for a couple of tactical examples. So let's say this company has, let's say, a sales loft and Salesforce as their tools. You need to be able to say bidirectional syncing with the Salesloft system and Salesforce. We want to make sure that those two are never out of sync. And the details, the devil's always in the details. So it could be make sure that you have matching statuses between your sales engagement platform, your CRM, make sure that you're clearing out your error logs each and every day to make sure the data is always syncing. The second is auto removing contacts that are outside the SLA. You'll notice if you've ever worked in an SDR organization, you'll notice that the slower SDRs often pile up their task, and they're always out of date. And so one easy fix for that could be if there's a prospect in a sequence over X days, maybe you automatically move them to nurture and they get flushed out of your sequences. Third is developing a minimum daily contacts. This is how many people do they need to reach out to every single day as a floor. And that's going to be an ad hoc analysis. And then you're going to need to do the work of maybe a roll-up summary field and then creating alerts and Slacks. And so you can start to think through, do these 4 initiatives help me achieve the user story, right? Is the SDR now going to be able to prospect their list on a daily basis automatically, meaning they spend little time, going through their list, and then they reallocate that time back to phone calls. So the measurable impact of that should be number of phone calls they make per day, right? So if you see an SDR making 30 to 40 phone calls a day, but you projected that they could make 60, well, there's something in the way of them doing 60 calls. And some of it could be the cumbersome structure of your tooling. I'll pause here and see if anyone has any questions around kind of like this framework of unlocking some capabilities in your tool stack.
I think
No, it's actually great.
Sorry, go ahead, Charles.
No, I said it's actually great. I'm looking to hire someone. Jeff, we had a conversation about that last week, but I'm looking to hire someone, potentially a revenue operation technology architect or something like that, because of my current situation. And this is definitely like everything I'm hearing today is definitely something that I'll be working on with that person once they join.
Yep, very cool. Scott, you're about to say?
Yeah, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're hiring a comms manager, somebody to kind of focus in on the VoIP tooling, our SMS, and all of our communications out to our customer. Just curious if anybody else has sort of adapted strategies similar to that.
Yeah, so start with the user story, could be one. Another tool you could use is the press release. It's a technique that they use in Amazon. And the press release is something like 3 or 4 sentences. And it's kind of like when someone releases a new product, you read that real quick and you go, okay, got it. Totally makes sense. So for example, the story could be John Thomas at YEG. Is that your company, Scott? I'm trying to remember your name of your company. Is it YEG?
Jobber.
Jobber, got it. So John Thomas at Jobber utilized the newest SMS feature and was able to accomplish XYZ, and then put in quotation marks some fake quote from John about like how he used the tool, was able to unlock the value. And that's like the vision statement, right? You want your users, as soon as they get their hands on the new release of your tooling, to say, I was able to do this, and release a press release on it, right? So that's another technique that you can use. And then you fill out the details, like you see the box on the bottom, to get to that end state. So for you, as you're plugging in these SMS capabilities in your communication stack, you want to start thinking through what ultimately do you want them to do? And then you're going to have to work backwards with the current tooling that you have to see what's capable and what's not. When you get to a point where it's not capable, then you have to get to the world of workarounds, right? So the higher the number of workarounds or the length of your workarounds, it introduces a lot of risk into the performance and the reception of the tooling. So for example, some tools are quite rigid in their user interfaces, and so when you purchase those tools, you're not going to be able to change how those tools interact with you, because it's just you're in a sort of box. So there's always some layer of workaround that you'll have to work with, and that's the trick around selecting the right vendor, nailing your requirements, so that when you get to a point where you're assessing vendors, you're shortening that workaround. Okay. All right, so let's get into vendor selection. Who here has gone through a vendor selection recently? All right, Megan, I'll pick on you a little bit. Tell me about your search. What were you guys trying to do, and who were you evaluating?
We're looking to consolidate tools really just to save money, and also because we're so small and RevOps team of 2, make our lives a little bit easier. So we're looking to replace our forecasting and Gong and our sales prospecting tools. So we're basically looking at Clary. It's kind of a
Yep.
one-stop shop effectively.
All right, and Anusha, you raise your hand.
Yeah, so recently, I mean, not very recently, but last year we did the evaluation on a CPQ tool. So, I mean, our natural choice was Salesforce CPQ, but I also evaluated DealHub, and we finally selected Salesforce CPQ. So, yeah.
Okay, and then Charles, I think you raised your hand also.
Yeah, we're looking for a sales enablement system. I'm going through a sales process with Showpad. Their
Okay.
AE is awesome.
Awesome. And then Pasha.
Yeah, I'm going through one right now. It's funny, I was trying to ask a question on the last slide, but in terms of the user stories, I'm working with a startup that just got Series A funding. They're moving off of I don't know, what I would call just like very inconsistent usage of a tech stack that spans multiple regions. So think like EMEA and APAC. In that, I'm starting with kind of that initial goal setting meeting, which will flow into user stories, which will then go into vendor selection. Obviously biased because I'm a HubSpot partner, but yeah, so just kind of like working through that whole process right now.
Okay, cool. What's really cool is that all of you are evaluating needs for your business, and none of the tools were the same across what you guys brought up. I think it's really telling that every business is looking at a different set of problems based on where each business is. So yeah, super interesting. Last year, I ended up bringing in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Apollo, and Gong in my tech stack, and then was recommending that we move off of HubSpot and move to Salesforce. And then as the year went on, and as I learned HubSpot myself, I realized we didn't necessarily need to move off HubSpot for Salesforce, at least for another 1 or 2 years. So yeah, as you're going through, there's always a tendency to come in, maybe crack a couple skulls, try to make some changes quickly, and then you find out, you know what, there's actually a lot of good here. Maybe we should stick with what tooling's in place. All right, so let's go through the basic assessment process. I use just a couple step framework here. First is to develop a plan. The plan should always align to your business goals, and then developing a set of requirements. So you should always have a requirements process, even if it's just a one-page template. Usually your IT or your procurement team will have this. If you're a startup, you won't have this at all, so you'll have to come up with one yourself. And then I always like to think about defining capabilities. So tools at the end of the day are meant to unlock capabilities. Many of these tools have significant overlap, and so you may have some redundancy. And the question why Apollo over 6 Sense? 6 Sense was like easily 8x the price of Apollo. And with 6 Sense, they were selling Slintel to us. Slintel is their kind of sales intelligence solution. And I thought Apollo, pound for pound in terms of value, was a better deal than Slintel. And then as an intent platform, I wanted to go with more of a point solution as opposed to an integrated tool. So we went with demand base for our intent solution. So Apollo plus demand base gave us more than enough capability at a much lower price than 6 Sense overall. Now that may shift. The winds of fortune always change in the business, and it may very well be that 6 Sense is a superior solution in 2025 for us, but we're going to roll into 2024 with the combination of Apollo and Slintel. Apollo also has the added advantage of adding in the sequencing tool for us. The thing I don't love about it, and then I'll just support it, but is that you don't have auto enrichment solutions in Apollo. That's the one thing I dislike about it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. The second thing is going to be once you have your plan and you've inspected all your capabilities. So when you think about your capabilities, think about the bow tie or your funnel. What are your prospecting capabilities? What are your capabilities around the sales funnel? What are your capabilities around your chart of accounts or your master data management strategy? Then once you have that capability roadmap, you can start to see, your varying strengths. Where are we strong, and where do we have areas for improvement? Second, you can start to take an inventory list of all the tools that you have today. If you are Series B, Series C, you're probably going to have all the tools that you probably need already. The question is, which ones do you replace or deprecate? If you're in a seed or a Series A, you're probably not operating with a whole lot of tools. You're probably in a build mode. The conversation is, do we build or do we buy? So get that inventory list, and I'll show you what that inventory list looks like. It's very simple. Third is going to be discovering a need and determining whether you have a gap in your capabilities. If you have a gap in your capabilities that you need to close quickly, closing it with a buy is probably the best solution. But you then run up against implementation timelines, budgets, and so those are other things to discuss as a head of revenue operations. Fourth is going to be assessing. So this is where you can start to draw your list of vendors, bring them to the table, and then based on your requirements, based on the gap analysis with your capabilities, you can then truly put a strong assessment of which direction you want to go and publish your findings to your stakeholders. And then lastly, taking action. So, how would this tool fit in? Developing a strong idea of how it's going to fit into your implementation timeline, and then developing a roadmap for change management and getting your organization ready for some of the new tooling. All right, so I'll give you an example. This is actually a real life example of when I came into another organization. This was my plan. I spent maybe 30, 60 days like understanding people's processes, their reporting, their tooling. And then I put together a roadmap over like 6 to 8 quarters, what we as an organization were going to do. And that roadmap, I tried to break it down into themes, right? So this company at the time had a hodgepodge of tools with asynchronous usage, all sorts of different levels of usage across the organization. You had the AEs who were using Salesforce, the SDRs who weren't. And so I started putting together a theme. Phase 1, let's nail the fundamentals. And what that means is let's take a look at all the accounts, get to what's called what do I call it? A system of record, not a system of record, an official record. I forgot what we call it. We gave it a good name, but this is what an account should look like. It should have these fields, everything else is superfluous. This is an opportunity, everything else is superfluous. And then we have a set of rules around if a field is not being used by a certain date after its creation, then it gets deprecated, right? So we kept creating a sweeping change around our tooling. And then we needed to start thinking through how does everyone interact with the system? And that's going to be in the form of page layouts, permission sets, and validations. So it's very Salesforce heavy language that I'm using. So if you are on HubSpot, you can use the HubSpot equivalent. Second was creating visibility and alignment. This was once we created the foundation, we needed to get the leadership, the ability to look into the org. And so we needed to take stock of all the KPIs, all the reporting, publish a data dictionary, publish the right reports, and then maintain those official dashboards. So one policy that I always have is revenue operations will maintain these dashboards as part of our official library of dashboards. If you need to create your own dashboards, here's how to, here's a series of dashboards and reports that you can use. And here are the official kind of data dictionary to find the metric that you need. Then the third phase was to modernize processes, flows, timestamps that made the system usable from from the perspective of making sure that data was clean. And then second, using the clean data to create better reporting. 4 was then scaling the core. That was integrating a bunch of these point solutions into the tooling, and then removing tools that were kind of standalone. And then 5 was kind of like being a bit of a frontiersman. What new tools can we integrate into the stack? This particular company had a penchant for bringing in new tools. Sales reps would always come in. Sales reps and sales managers would go to the previous RevOps manager and recommend new tools. I said, we're not doing that anymore. if you're going to do that, fill out this form. And I made the form extremely painful to fill out. And guess what? The amount of requests that came in dropped to like 1 or 2. And I told the CRO, there's no bypassing the system. You have to fill this out yourself. So CRO, I was like, as a CRO, you should be setting the example for the rest of your team, and you're going to fill out this form just like everyone else. And guess what? The CRO stopped sending me tools in Slack. So just a couple of ways to really normalize and stabilize the company. So let's go over like a set of requirements document. So this is something that I'll tend to put in and partner with my IT team. So if the IT team has a requirement sheet, what ends up happening is your team will look to RevOps to fill that out. But instead, I'd rather have the functional team fill it out rather than RevOps. And so create your own requirements doc, get that filled out from your go-to-market team, and then fill out the IT form if you have to fill that out yourself. So this is what it looks like. What's the goal? What's the objective that we're trying to achieve? Ultimately, everything boils down to an ROI these days. So many requirements are now coming up with an ROI. Don't use the ROI that you get from your vendor, because your vendor is always going to point up and to the right. And sometimes they're like bullshit metrics, like, oh, you're going to 10x, 100x your time. I just never believe any of those. So you come up with your own. Time savings is the easiest way to do it. And then pipeline accretion is the second way to do it, but the more unprovable method of developing an ROI. Second, develop your features. So I'll take a poll from everyone who wants to use this tool. What features would they like to see in the tool? They'll create a laundry list. So you might say, for example, that we want to efficiently route leads. So this is a lead routing request. It needs to be able to integrate with these two tools, Salesforce and Outreach. I need to be able to take into account any reps who are out of office. And then leads that miss their service level agreement with one rep is then automatically routed and bounced to another rep. And this makes sense because if a rep is on a phone call and a lead comes in, it's supposed to be theirs, but they're still on a call, it should bounce to the next person, right? Next is if you're in Salesforce, lead to account is always a bit of a pain. So, how do you create a lead to account setup? And then if it's a duplicate lead that's already a contact, how do you then automatically merge that into the contact? So these are just a couple of features that you might capture. Your business reps, your sales reps, your business users are probably not going to have this level of detail, but your marketing ops and your sales ops person in your company is going to definitely have these set of more technical requirements. Then you start defining your system requirements. These are your negotiables. The question is, which ones are non-negotiable? You want them to integrate. You want to be able to have open APIs, differentiated profiles and permission sets. And then thinking through their own workflow builder. Do they have an activity diagram format that you can use? And then lastly, what are your assumptions? No tools that are over X number of weeks, given our roadmap today, that we can take on. So once you have this requirements document, you might be able to then match it to your capabilities. So this is what I talked about when we map out capabilities. So take your entire customer journey, and then break out each stage into a series of, these are the little things that we need to do as an organization. So in our top of funnel, we need to be able to capture intent data. We need to be able to have automatic form fills. We need to be able to determine if a lead is a marketing qualified lead. Just write all the little things that you can think of. Then you can determine if it's what priority level it is. And I like to use a P0 to P3 scale. P0 meaning critical, P3 meaning nice to have. If given the choice to operate, we have to have the P0s because that's what's keeping the lights on. As an organization, we start moving the needle with the P1s. Have this graded across a number of different stakeholders in the business, and you'll find that your grading may not match everyone else's grading. And that's totally okay. Then you can mix and match with, what capabilities do you have today that can meet that capability? And if it doesn't meet, if you don't have the capability to do it today, then you can start thinking through, okay, what are some potential options for us to build or buy to close that capability gap? So that's this top of funnel, and I'll show you a little bit of sales and CX as well. This is a real life exercise I did with a company, and they wanted to know they were operating on gut feel, like instinct. The CRO kept telling me, we need to move off this tool and move on to this tool. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I think you might be right, because I operated on that same tech stack that you're recommending. But then as I started to dig into these capabilities, I started to appreciate the existing tooling that they had in place. Give me 1 second, everyone. Apologies. Okay. Sorry, everyone. My daughter's at home today. She's sick again. So parenting while teaching the course, always difficult. Okay, cool. So you can start to see a kind of a capability list across your entire funnel. Now, let's say, for example, you've narrowed, you know what capabilities you need to work on. Then you need to zoom into that capability and determine, what set of tools should you look at. So, for example, this particular client company was looking for, hey, we should move to Salesforce. We're on HubSpot. So what I started to do was start to take a list of go into those capabilities and then drill into the sub capabilities. And this is getting out to get a little bit tool specific, right? So one thing that I'm always scared of is making the wrong choice. So when I'm assessing vendors, when I'm going through the demo with the company, what I see is something that is an ideal use case. But tools are often different once I open them up and integrate them into my ecosystem. They somehow don't appear as glamorous as what I saw in the demo. I don't know, for whatever reason, there's a level of detail that's missed when I'm going through a demonstration. So the higher the rigor in your requirements, hopefully will de-risk you making the wrong choice of vendor. Here in this case, I started to drill really deep. I started interviewing a couple of folks who use Salesforce and HubSpot outside of my organization. I started interviewing other ops admins and started to get to an idea of, okay, well, what are some of the main things in each of the tools that are missing? And after maybe about a week and a half of research, I started to compile a list of areas where they had feature parity or feature impairment, or they were feature superior. And in this case, I thought Salesforce was the more flexible solution for this particular company. But when we started to get to the price estimate, they were punching way above this company's budget. And so the idea was to remain on HubSpot and to live with the workarounds. And my recommendation was HubSpot is probably going to get better year after year, might close the gap for you. I'd expect HubSpot to get more expensive over time, but not nearly as expensive as where Salesforce is going to be. And so if this company was going to land on Salesforce, it was probably going to be in 2025 or 2026. And then here's the price uplift that you would see internally. You'd probably move from a 30K CRM subscription to probably 90,000. Charles is laughing because you probably had this conversation. All right. By the way, I do appreciate HubSpot. I think it's a pretty, it's come a long way to support sales teams and enterprise sales teams. There's a lot of things that are missing that, quite frankly, I'm hoping HubSpot move to the top of their feature list. But again, Salesforce has these ideas that you want them to build, and then they've been in the idea exchange for 10, 15 years. So even Salesforce doesn't build all the things that you want. All right, so the next thing is to start developing an inventory list of the tooling. This is a real company, actually. I came into their, talked to their IT team and said, give me all the go-to-market tools that they had. They couldn't figure out which tools were go-to-market. So then I had to go to their sales operations leader, and he had a list of tools that they used. And then I compared the IT list and the sales ops list, and I found that they were paying for tools that no one had any access to, because the previous admins had purchased these tools and then they left the company and never handed the keys or the license to anybody else. So then I had to work with their finance team to shut down those licenses, and very interesting. So once we pruned all the unused tools, the dead money, as I call it, dead money, we saved dead money, and I started negotiating for a higher rate with them. I was like, look, I already saved you this much money. You guys should shift that money to me instead. You were going to pay it to somebody else. You should shift it to me. I didn't succeed in that, but it was a nice little try. But once we pruned the list, this was their actual set of tooling. And I said, this is a pretty good tech stack you guys have here. And the one thing I get from your entire team is how much they hate their go-to-market tech stack. So we started instituting a biannual, twice a year survey. Goes out every 2 quarters. And that survey does 2 things. So Q1, Q3, we send out a time accounting study. It's how much time do you spend on proposals, contracts, prospecting, emails, meetings. Start to really break down how much time they're spending in selling or non-selling activities. Then the second survey goes out in Q2 and then Q4, and it's around it's a Likert scale, 1 through 5, 1 meaning low, 5 meaning high, and how do you feel about each of your tools, and then have open statements. And what you'll find is hopefully biannual over biannual improvement in those toolings, in those tech ratings. It's also a red flag for people don't love certain tools, so maybe you should dump that tool. So we walk through a capability roadmap, creating an inventory list. We then need to create an architecture around all the different tech stack. So this is a blurry photo. It's meant to be blurry on purpose, but this is a real life tech stack that I did once manage with my RevOps team of 4 underneath me. 1 was enablement, so 3 like operationally systems focused individuals. But the tech stack here was all over the place, right? And they had a lot of tools that were purchased by CS, and then they were purchased by sales. They were purchased independently. So the right hand and the left hand weren't talking to each other. So there was ripe opportunity to consolidate tools. And then they had a PLG motion in their company. So they had folks signing up for their tool, for their trial. And then there was no way to turn off the trial within the CRM. And so what we found was the product team never created a feature to deprecate someone's active trial. So folks who had a trial actually had the full tool to themselves, but just product never realized it until we started pointing it out. And so we started building up the data infrastructure in the top right. So you can see Postgres, Google BigQuery, Census, Zapier, Fivetran. This is just a way of moving data from one place to another and then visualizing it in a BI tool. So this is when you're thinking about your systems architecture, you can transform the capability roadmap and your customer lifecycle, and then start putting a different view of it, which would be your blueprint. I'm not the greatest at creating information diagrams, but I highly recommend using straight lines as opposed to squiggly lines. Okay. Yeah, I'm the guy who will send you like chicken scratch, and then I'll give it to like my ops person. Like, can you make this look better? I know how the systems should work with each other. Can you go make this reality? All right. So vendor selection. So when we go through a vendor selection process, define your requirements, identify your vendors, have your short list. I think the wrong way to go about this is someone shoulder tapping you and saying, hey, I saw on LinkedIn that people are using this tool. We should use that tool. I always think that's the wrong way of doing it. And in fact, once you invite that type of mentality into the organization, it'll become an endless stream. You'll probably get hit up 2 or 3 times per quarter. And the last thing you want to do is be the person that says no. You should be the person that says, yes, we can do that, but go fill out my form. We have a process to evaluate these tools. Then start evaluating your criteria. So we came up with our requirements list. You should have an evaluation model, and then you should define that. You should then give weights to each of those the different features within that model, and then have a consensus-driven approach to deciding which tool to go with. This is also a little bit of CYA in my opinion, because if you're the one that puts your seal of approval on a tool and a tool doesn't work out, as a new head of RevOps, you would now put yourself in a position of deficit within the organization. So one thing you can do is spread the risk around. That'd be my personal opinion. Next is narrowing down the set of vendor demos, and then finalizing your selection. Never say no to your second, third, and fourth choice. Keep them warm, because things might fall apart at the last second. Always have a plan B. Any questions on kind of the process here? Anyone that purchased a tool recently starting to put a process like this together in conjunction with your IT team? All right, Megan's saying Masa Menos. Okay. Okay, cool. All of this is meant to slow down the organization because the organization can get a little gung-ho with bringing in new tools, especially young companies. Okay, technical debt. Who here knows what technical debt is? All right, very cool. Okay, let's go through it then. So whenever you're developing a path, whenever you go down a path with your systems, you are inevitably giving up the option to go down the other path. So with these tools are somewhat infinitely flexible. So it's possible that you can build a Rube Goldberg machine. A Rube Goldberg is a super complicated device that does a simple task. Sometimes a simple task just requires a simple solution. In fact, I always argue that you choose the simple solution. I'll give you a real life example of a current head of RevOps who used to report to me. And when I first hired him, he was a systems administrator who had a music background, by the way. He was like a music major, most gifted systems admin I've ever met. And he loved, flexing the maximum amount of muscles in Salesforce. And so he would build everything in Apex. And so he'd come to me and build something extremely crazy in our sandbox. And I said, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. How did you build this? And he would tell me all the details behind the scenes. I'm like, how long did that take you? And he's 4 to 6 hours. I'm like, why did you just build this with the native capabilities? You would have built it in 20 minutes. He's like, oh, well, I went down this rabbit hole. I found out I was able to do this using all these new features using Apex. I was like, that's really cool, but you're using the wrong tool for the problem at hand. I'd highly recommend you use an order of operations. Back in the day, Salesforce used to be, validations, process workflows, process builders, flows, Apex, right? There's an order of operations that you should choose. So instead of jumping to the deep end of the pool, start on the shallow end because it's easier to pick apart and hand off. What you need to worry about is not your current job today because you're going to move on. You need to be able to pass off this system to someone else that could easily take your work and build on top of it. If your work is so complicated that they have to build on top of it and they have to undo what you're doing, you're actually doing your company a disservice by building all the complexity into your stack. That's how I would like to describe technical debt. You choose one path, you're forsaking another, and you're inevitably incurring technical debt. So technical debt accumulates when ops teams cut too many corners, or you take the more complicated route. I would say my admin didn't take the route of cutting too many corners. He went the opposite route. He built like a very complicated Rube Goldberg machine. And so you're trying to obviously complete a project. If you've ever worked in real estate or any sort of project management, there's always a scalability trilemma. And the 3 points to project management are you can only achieve 2 out of 3, meaning it's cost, it's time, and quality. So I can build the shortest amount of time, highest amount of quality, shortest amount of cost. Compared to multiple competing priorities, you probably have to give on one of those parameters. And so inevitably, when you're making these trade-offs in your tech stack, you are going to either incur cost, incur time, or degrade the quality of the solution. And that's totally okay. So does the technical debt need to be systemic by nature? I'd argue that you have process debt, strategic debt. Strategic debt's the worst, but most of the time it's out of revenue operators' hands. So if you're dealing with a process deficit, like a real life example with this of this would be allowing reps to write their own proposals without review or approval. That's a piece of process debt, because what if the rep is proposing something that is non-standard and non-compliant to your sales process? or your finance processes. That's an area of process debt. In addition, you're going to have technical debt because you want all proposals to funnel through a set of systems that can be then reviewed and approved. So when we think about technical debt, there's a couple of quadrants. As a former consultant, I love 2x2, so here's a 2x2 for you. So technical debt quadrants would be reckless and prudent on one axis, and deliberate and inadvertent on the other. Now, when you're incurring technical debt, you can determine which quadrant you're going to be in. And I think the worst one is going to be that we shouldn't have done that. But oftentimes you'll find yourself in the top two. We don't have time, or we don't know how, right? We don't know how is incapable. It's lack of skill. We don't have time is going to be giving up on that time quadrant of the time step in the trilemma. And then my personal favorite is to, the type of debt that we want to incur are the we'll deal with it later, right? So why does this happen? So a couple of things. Insufficient testing, poor skill set / quality. You're in over your head, right? You bring in a new tool, you don't know how to administrate it. That happens all the time. Happens to me. Don't worry, it happens to everybody. Job security through obscurity. I've never seen that personally, someone building something so obscure so that they're the person that can never be fired. So true story, I met a guy who was a mainframe AS400 admin. And the guy had been, I was talking to him about like, I can't believe they're still on mainframes. This is back in like 2008. And he worked at Warner Brothers. And the guy was paid a boatload of money because he was literally the only person in the LA area that knew how to administrate that software. And I kept thinking to myself, what if you get hit by a bus? Warner Brothers, the studio is totally screwed because you're like the only person that knows how to use this super obscure old computer. But it was funny because I guess he had been making, I don't know, like 70, 80K, and now he's making like 300K. So like they fired him, they brought him back, and they're like, oh shoot, he's the only person that knew how to do this. So they're like quadrupled his salary. And then he's basically holding them ransom. So I guess that's the one example that I've seen, job security through obscurity. It's like that one guy at the bottom of the basement you forget about, you fire him, and then the whole building falls apart. It's kind of a strange thing. All right, no documentation. This is a big one. You'll often find actually new tools. When you buy new tools, they don't even have product documentation either. So you're trying to learn how to use their tool just as much as the CSM that you're working with. Also, you chose the longest path possible. That was the person that used to work for me. So these are a couple of ways that technical debt can occur. And so when we think about paying down this debt, you have a couple of approaches. It's just like paying down financial debt. The pay-as-you-go model. Pay as you go, consolidating the debt, and then paying off all at once. Consolidating debt is like restart, do it over. My personal preference is to do the first one, pay as you go. So you always reserve a little bit of time each quarter to pay down a little bit of your backlog. So I personally have a backlog of feature requests in my stack, and I label them as either as accretive or debt. And if it's debt, you try to tackle on a couple of these each quarter. And so when we think about applying like Agile or Scrum techniques to them, you might have a technical debt item, such as consolidating a status pick list, adjusting your sales layouts. And then what you can do is you can start to lay out, a couple of sprints. So a sprint in my book is always biweekly. You can have a different cadence if you want, a weekly sprint, but let's say you're in sprint 4, that means you're 8 weeks into the year. Sprint 5, you start to batch, what goes into the sprint, and then how long was that specific item in the backlog, and trying to clear out, the highest priority items in that backlog. Focus on the quick wins, focus on the ones that drive impact, all the thankless tasks you can leave, lying around for quite some time, but you just want to start clearing some of these things out over time. Yeah, in my opinion, do not try to eliminate that all at once. I always think that's a bad idea. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you through, as a head of revenue operations, one thing that I like to do is keep track of how much we're spending and make a recommendation on how much what our budget should be for our tooling and why. The why is going to be a set of benchmarks around how much it's going to cost per role. So first is going to be start taking a look at your inventory of your stack and start to benchmark when the renewal is going to be, and then start laying out a calendar for when you're going to start kicking off negotiations. So for each of these tools, I'm going to put a 90-day, 120-day reminder. And so I always have an idea of if I'm going to consolidate some of these tools I'm consolidating might have mixed match durations. So I'm going to have to bite the bullet and double pay for a tool for a little while. So you can start to lay this out for your companies. Some companies are now using vendors like Vendor, and there's like a couple of other tools that help do this for you. But I'm a little old school. I like to do this by hand and keep track of all the tools myself. And then laying out a view with a couple of matrices. So a role spend matrix. I'll break out the organization by its specific individual, specific roles. Identify how much headcount there is in seat, as well as to be hired. So how many open roles they have. And then start laying out how much does each incremental seat, how much is that going to cost me? And then you can start to see how much spend you're paying per role per month. So you can see pretty quickly that the CRO is at $506 per month. The field sales rep, the outside sales rep, is at almost $900 per seat, and RevOps. So you'll probably notice this if you've been tracking this. I've been tracking these costs for about 10 years now. These roles have become much more expensive, like how much you're spending for tools for each head. Back in the day, an SDR only cost me $200-300 in tools per head per month. But now it's getting up to I've seen some companies in the $400 to $500 range. And you think about it, do they have to get a LinkedIn Sales Navigator license? That's a pretty expensive tool per month. ZoomInfo is a super expensive tool per month. So you start to get to a place where, something has to give. And I'm finding that all of these tools are negotiable, except for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. They like hardly ever negotiate with you. But yeah, some of these tools you're breaking the bank, right? Like Salesforce, Outreach, Sales Nav, Gong alone, those four together are going to set you back $500 per month per head. Easy. Those are easily the $100 per month tools. So when a rep comes to me with a point solution and starts charging me $100 per month, I almost just like laugh them out of the room. I go, you're kidding me. Compared to the rest of the tools out there, there's no way I'm paying you $100 for the capability you're providing versus my other capabilities in the stack. There's no way I'm going to pay you $100. Here's how much I'm willing to pay you: $20-30 per head per month. Like that's my ceiling, right? And I'm going to expect a volumetric discount after that. So that's why you need to have, capability matrix, compare it with your blueprint, your architecture, and then coming up with these matrices. This is going to allow you to contain and roadmap your costs appropriately as a head of RevOps.
Would you do this as well for demand generation? So again, like if I'm using SEMrush and I'm using Contently and I'm using, I don't know, whatever tools they might be, like, would you recommend structuring it that same way?
I struggle with that because the number of heads per marketing, if you do this for marketing tech stack, it gets a little wonky, right? Because instead of paying $600 per head per month, you're getting to like $4,000 per head per month. The best way to do it is incorporate it as a percentage of your marketing acquisition costs.
Okay.
That's what I would do, right? And I don't have those benchmarks for you, so it's a great question.
Yeah, I know enough about that because I come a bit more from the marketing background. And then there's the second, which is a stupid question, but this is basically just the accumulation of total monthly spend, right? Like across, so let's say Salesforce is, I don't know, 10K per month. And then you've got like Outreach, which is, so you're basically just taking the role, what they're doing in it, and then just dividing. Simple equation. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing you can do is, so when you're doing your sales acquisition, your customer acquisition cost is your sales expense plus your marketing expense, right? What I've always found is when the CFO says we need to start cutting and trimming down customer acquisition costs, the number one thing they'll look at is let's cut the tech stack, right? Okay, so let's cut the tech stack. We're spending $1 million. I can cut maybe $100,000. That's equivalent of maybe half a sales rep. So I'm spending all this time to go cut tools, and I'm not cutting tools, by the way. I'm actually cutting capabilities out of my tech stack. That makes it painful when honestly we could have just got rid of our lowest performing rep and saved 100K there. When you look at customer acquisition costs, almost, I don't know the percentage, I've ventured to guess 80, 90% of it is headcount, right? If you're a very events driven, then you probably have a bunch of like sponsorships and events that you're running. That's probably a significant contributor to your acquisition costs. But headcount is always the place where you need to fine tune. Like if you can make your headcount more productive, your customer acquisition cost goes way down because you're bringing in more customers. More customers you can bring in to lower your acquisition costs, right, on a per customer basis. I always think like tooling is the last thing you should cut, not the first thing, but it's always a reverse. Everyone reaches for tools. It's the first thing. I don't know if you've ever listened to this like personal finance podcast. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. This guy's like Ramit Sethi. He's like a podcast host. He has this concept of solving for a $3 problem, then a $300 problem. Cutting a tech stack out is always a $3 problem. It's like, oh, I could save my way to retirement if I cut my coffees out per day. It's like, well, you'll also never retire because you need the coffee to function at work. Like, go get your coffee every day. Like,
I've always felt strongly about that, Jeff. I'm glad you can you reassure me. I'd always rant about that. I was like,
yeah.
What does saving $4 a day do? I need to make more money anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go get a higher salary. All right, so then role access matrix. This is another matrix. I love matrices. So this is helpful for your onboarding and offboarding. It's hard to keep track of who needs what and when. Usually this is pushed off to your IT team by the time you get to Series C, Series D. But in Series A, Series B land, unfortunately, you're doing this yourself. So all the employees, what role they're in, and then what tools they have access to. Even more, you might have another that says permission set matrix, right? Like you create a set of permission sets, which roles should have access to that. And then you create an exemption process for any specific permission sets that people need that are outside the scope. Okay. Again, you won't need to do this if you're at a later stage company, but creating checklists. So Series A, Series B, especially if you're taking a head of RevOps role, you want to give your team a checklist. And if someone says, well, how come this person didn't have a tool that they've been onboarded to or offboarded to, I will point to my team and say, hey, did you create a checklist for that individual? We'll go through and then we can start to follow through the steps. This is a SOP, a standard operating procedure, very, very easy to write. Just something that you want to create for your team. I think a lot of head of RevOps come in, they're not technical, they forget to do this. And then I'll pause here, see if anyone has any questions. If not, we can roll into office hours with like your tech stack questions. Cool. Well, hopefully, I don't often talk about technology and tooling that often. This is the one lecture that I do. So in the office hours, we can geek out about any tools you guys want, or if you guys want to see that AI example, I can bring that in for the office hours as well.
Yeah, I might have a question regarding your sales engagement tool as well. We have an internal debate on Outreach versus Sales Love versus other platforms. So something that we can discuss potentially during the office hour.
Yeah, I've been a customer of both. I don't think one is better than the other. It starts with your requirements. So come up with your requirements list, bring it in Thursday, and then go pound pavement with the sales rep. Like put their pre-sales engineer to the test.
Nice.
Cool. All right, I'll see you guys at office hours.
Thanks.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.